An interesting thing happened to me the other day after a session in the TV studio when I was having a quick word to the audience as they were making their way out, thanking them for coming along to see the show being made. And somebody was wondering why I was so skeptical, especially since they've gone to see psychics live on stage at various places and have been convinced. I thought for a moment, and I put this to them, which it seemed to work. It seemed to be a good analogy, a good argument, a good case to put forward. So I'll tell you now, in case you think it's a good case, a good thing to say, and possibly you could use this yourself. So imagine, I said to this guy, imagine you went to see a world-famous magician on stage instead of a psychic doing a reading in public. And the magician made people float through the air, rabbits appeared out of hats, the chosen card that you picked from a deck and hid under your seat was magically transported to the stage, all this sort of things. Typical, classical conjuring tricks. I said, if you're just somebody off the street, you wouldn't have a clue how those tricks worked. You really wouldn't. They would look like real magic. And you could spend the rest of your life wondering how these tricks worked, and you wouldn't figure it out. Does that mean that the magicians are really doing magic? As in, are they really bending or breaking the laws of physics? Do the rabbits really appear from nowhere? Or, I said, has the magician studied and practiced for years, bought books, bought DVDs, gone to magic clubs, learnt from other magicians, skills and techniques designed to fool you? And we both know full well that the rabbit really doesn't appear out of nowhere, that it's very cleverly hidden somewhere until it appears. And this guy said, yes, that's absolutely right, of course. And I said, but then tell me, how do the tricks work? How does the magician make all these things happen? He said he didn't know. I said, okay. Imagine you're another magician in the same club, one of the group of magicians, and you go along to see exactly the same act. But you know how the tricks work. You know that at this moment in the performance, while the magician is doing one thing, he's really doing another. You know where the rabbit may be, and you know how the card gets from the seat to the stage, and so on. I said, then you'd appreciate, or you'd understand the performance from a completely different level. You'd be looking out for when the tricks come along. He said, yes, that's right. And I said, well, for me, seeing a psychic doing a psychic reading live on stage to an audience, it's sort of like that. It's sort of like that because I've learnt the techniques, I've learnt the tricks, if you will. I know what to look out for, and I know what's happening when it's happening. It's not your fault you don't know these tricks. Why the hell would you? This is a really weird skill set to have. So I said to him, I'm not convinced by these things because when I see them, I can see what's really going on. And you know what? To make a believer really stop and think, using that analogy, I thought was quite a victory. And it seemed to work very well on this occasion. Use it if you want to. It worked for me. The Skeptic Zone, episode number 143, starts now.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
It's the 15th of July, 2011, the day I fly out to TAM, Las Vegas. Very excited about that, but I'm glad I've got the show up online before I leave the house. Coming up on this week's episode, Maynard's spooky action. This is an interesting one. Maynard talks to Nicholas DiPatrizio from the University of California at Irvine about a paper he's co-authored about the body's natural marijuana-like chemicals that make fatty foods hard to resist. Yeah, that's why fatty foods are hard to resist, eh? Really interesting research that has been carried on. I wonder if they had to eat a lot of fatty foods to do this research. I wonder if they gained like 20 kilos each. It's sort of research that I think we all can carry out from time to time. Very interesting stuff. That's coming up at the top of the show. And after that, we've got an interesting clip. 20 years ago, on Australian television, there was a show called Couchman, which was a sort of like a Donahue-type chat sort of audience show. And one day, their topic for discussion was astrology. It's so interesting. I was looking through my archives the other day, and I found this little clip from 20 years ago. Hear what the astrologers have to say to defend astrology, and hear the skeptics chiming in as well. Skeptics in the audience. And I love it when we give these people enough rope, so to speak. Let them go. Let them try to explain their worldview to us all. Coming up, about the middle of the show. Then to round off the show, Maynard's back again with me in tow this time as we both go to the Supanova Science Fiction and Fantasy Convention here in Sydney, on the lookout for skeptics. Are there any skeptics wandering around these conventions? Well, the answer is, of course, yes, otherwise we wouldn't have the segment. But it was a lot of fun, as always. Oh, it's always a lot of fun running around with Maynard. You have no idea. The things that guy gets up to. I could only just barely keep up, but we did run into some skeptics. So that's coming up right at the end of the show. But for now, I'm going to run downstairs. And you know what? I drank all the vodka. The 12-year-old scotch is gone. Coffee ran out. Tap water. Oh, yes. I'm going to enjoy some tap water, and I'll let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Hey, people at home, are you feeling a bit hungry? Well, we've got someone who might know why you're feeling hungry and why you really like that fatty food. On the phone, I've got Nicholas DiPatrizio, PhD, postdoctorate fellow, Department of Pharmacology, always my favourite department, School of Medicine, University of California, Irvine. Have I got your title correct, Nicholas?
You've got it right.
You've been involved in a study that might open the door to finding out why we love our fatty food. We all know we do. What has your study discovered?
What we've discovered is that when fats touch the tongue, fat-specific, not carbohydrates and not protein, when the fats touch the tongue, it elicits this response and releases these molecules called the endocannabinoids. Now, the endocannabinoids are natural marijuana-like chemicals. So, of course, the receptors aren't there to get high from. They're there to mediate some normal physiological function. When the fat touches the tongue, it releases these natural cannabinoids from the GI tract that bind the cannabinoid receptors in the small intestine and actually enhance your food intake. So it promotes a positive feedback loop, which will push you to consume more foods.
It's going to receptors in the stomach. I would have thought it would go to some in the brain and fire it off there.
Well, we're not saying that the brain does not serve a component in reward evaluation, but what we've identified is this signal in the gut is critical for maintaining fat intake. What we do is if we block that signal in a rodent model, so pharmacologically going in, bathing the intestine with an antagonist, which is a fancy term for these little molecules that clog receptors. Then, when we give the rat the fat to eat, as we discovered already, the endocannabinoids are being produced in the gut. However, they have nowhere to bind because the receptors are blocked. And sure enough, what happens, as soon as you do that, the animals stop eating the fat. That's how we were able to identify physiologically that these chemicals are critical, because if you block their actions, if you completely block food intake.
When will you be able to do research on humans?
We're we're now providing the foundation, to test in humans. We're focusing on rodent models now. We're trying to now, really nail down the foundation, nail down the biochemical processes that are involved in that. In order to do these sort of tests, you have to use a rodent model. And then the next step would be testing in humans.
What kind of sample size would you consider one to be significant for this study?
I'm not sure. We haven't sat down and designed the experiment yet. It's a long process. It takes, a lot of time. We need to make sure that everything is correct. That's not my focus right now. My focus is on making the discovery, kind of creating that knowledge, and then from there we go to the therapeutics, which would then be tested, of course, in humans. We're not there yet.
Now, Nicholas, does this change existing knowledge about why we like fatty foods? Have you overturned a paradigm and people go, wow, you guys, you've changed everything we thought about eating?
Cannabinoids have been known for maybe a decade or so to really be, modulating food intake. It's been known for longer than that, of course, thousands of years. People have talked about cannabis as increasing food intake. What is new about this is that we've identified a critical area outside of the brain. As you mentioned earlier, previous work has shown that endocannabinoid activity within the brain, in particular areas of reward centers, endocannabinoids there increase food intake. The endocannabinoids are known to modulate taste properties. This is the first series of studies that actually show a specific organ in the periphery that can be a potential therapeutic target for actually treating obesity, which of course is going to lead to cardiovascular disease and diabetes.
Yes, I imagine you'd have people like Pfizer knocking on your door pretty fast to manufacture something once you definitely had the proof there in humans. How many years away do you think the proof it might be?
The process takes a while from bench to bedside. It's pure speculation. Usually it can take between 7 and 10 years, but maybe 5 to 10 years if it's on a faster track. This has already been tried before, so a lot of people have heard of Acomplia, which was approved in Europe for treating obesity. And that's exactly what that molecule was, a CB1 cannabinoid receptor antagonist. So it blocked the body's natural endocannabinoids. And in America, it was up to stage 3, I believe, clinical trials. It was almost ready to go on the market. And what unfortunately happened with this molecule was that in a larger population, so in Europe, when they were actually prescribing this out into the general population, you would see increased risks for mood changes, possible depression. So the idea being if you may be predisposed to a depression or even suicidal ideations, this may push you over the edge, so messing with mood. We also know that endocannabinoids don't only regulate food intake, they regulate mood. And how they regulate mood is within the brain. That's why this new series of studies are very important, because you can now design molecules that block the cannabinoid receptors, but they don't need to cross into the brain. We're able to block that without the drugs crossing into the brain.
Does this mean you've also, Nicholas, got an even stronger connection now between the bucket bong and the munchies?
I'm not sure what the first term you said refers to, but the munchies, absolutely. I believe that this is one of the targets of cannabis. I'm not saying it's the only target. Remember, these receptors are all throughout the body. Someone ingests cannabis, it gives this munchy effect, kind of pushes you to eat these foods, maybe make them taste a little bit better. Of course, they're binding the system in the gut. But remember, the psychoactive ingredient THC in cannabis also crosses the blood-brain barrier. So they also block receptors within the brain. So cannabis is likely not only working on this gut system in the gut to promote this positive feedback loop, but it's also acting on central circuits as well.
We're talking with Nicholas DiPatrizio, PhD postdoctorate fellow at the Department of Pharmacology. Now, Nicholas, what other areas of science would you like to be someone doing a bit of work in at the moment? Because you're obviously in this dietary area, you're very obsessed with that. Is there sort of a related discipline you'd like to see someone do work in that could, complement what you're doing?
Well, I'm really interested in trying to combine new technologies with all of this. I'm really interested in these certain technologies that can quantify and tell you what lipids are there and the amount of them. I really see this technology advancing over the next, 10, 20 years. I'd like to start to really begin to look throughout the brain and sort of map the brain and see how can endocannabinoid levels in really small subnuclei in small areas of the brain, how are they possibly regulating food intake and reward? I really wanted to use these new technologies.
And Nicholas, has this changed the way you eat because you even know more exactly what's going on inside your body when you get stuck into that ice cream there? Has it changed the way you eat at all?
That's a good question. Myself, has it changed it? I'm not a huge, real fatty eater, to be honest with you.
You're a salt guy, a savory guy.
To be honest, I prefer the fats and the salts more than the sugars.
Now, Nicholas, I'll just ask you a political question before we go, and as a scientist, you don't have to answer this. As far as California decriminalising marijuana use, how do you feel about that?
It's a tough question. Cannabis has a lot of therapeutic benefits. The problem with cannabis is that, as I said, it binds all of these receptors throughout the entire body, and you get this side effect, which is the psychoactive effect, right? The high, so to say. That's not really good medicine. It could disrupt driving skills, for example. The short answer to your question, or the long answer, is cannabis probably isn't the best medicine. However, now let's compare this to other drugs, for example, like opioids or oxycontin, or these synthetic opioids. Those drugs are horrible and have horrible side effects. Cannabis, on the other hand, you have very, very few of these effects. So it's in my opinion, it's a far, far safer drug.
As we're having a big chow down at lunch or dinner on a nice fatty, again, ice cream or something that's yummy, what should we be thinking's going on? How can we picture that in our mind as our final image of what you've discovered there at the University of California, Irvine?
I think the easiest way to conceptualize this is you imagine, I don't know if over there you guys had this saying called you can't eat just one chip. And you can kind of make the analogy with French fries as well. When you taste that first potato chip or that first French fry, why do you want to continue to eat that whole bag and that whole plate of French fries? As soon as that first French fry or chip touches the tongue, releases the natural marijuana-like chemicals in the gut and makes you want to eat more of those fatty foods. And it's an evolutionarily conserved behavior as well. We're all still in a feast or famine. We haven't evolved past basically being on the savannah. It's a feast or famine state. So fat has more than twice the amount of energy contained in it than protein or carbohydrate does. So it's pretty advantageous for you to overconsume these foods in the savannah or in a feast and famine condition. Unfortunately now, in industrialized, more modern societies, we have access to those fats right around the corner. We can go eat as many as we want.
What actually stops it? Is it when the receptor runs out of chemical descend? Because that's when, or because our gut becomes full, or because we notice we're getting really fat and unattractive to others?
When the fat touches the tongue, endocannabinoid levels spike and drive you to eat more of it. Once you've had enough calories and the food then goes into the small intestine, again, just hypothesizing here, and we still have to test this, it's very likely that the endocannabinoid levels may drop, terminating the meal. So the endocannabinoids may actually be at the seat of both of these phenomena.
I'm getting the munchies just even talking to you, Nicholas. It's been great chatting to you.
Me too.
I look forward to hearing more about your research in the future and to the next phase it moves on to, because one day we may be able to eat as much as we like and not get fat. Isn't that selfish?
I know. Isn't it selfish? Well, we live once and we want to enjoy our life, right?
Is there a website or somewhere where people could go to look at the results and about your research?
This is published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the USA version. So they can go online. The acronym is PNAS. That's the journal that it's published in. You can go to University of California, Irvine School of Medicine, and there you'll find our Department of Pharmacology, and you can log on there and look at a bunch of the research that's been done. There's a posting about the specific study on there as well.
This is Eugenie Scott, National Center for Science Education. You can find us at www.ncse.com. Come see us if you want to know anything about the creationism and evolution conflict in the United States, or more's the pity internationally these days. We are a clearinghouse for information on this vexing but certainly very interesting problem. Come and find out more about it.
And now we travel back to the wonderful year of 1992, almost 20 years ago, when ABC television here in Australia ran a program called Couchman, which was an interactive type audience show. In the audience on this occasion were a number of Australia's leading astrologers and some leading skeptics, including Barry Williams and Ian Bryce, who you'll hear later. One of the leading astrologers you'll hear soon is Milton Black, who's still doing astrology. Now, he makes very bold and brassy predictions about his accuracy in predicting election outcomes in Australia. And at one stage you'll hear him say Keating has gone, implying that the then Prime Minister Paul Keating, would lose the next federal election, which was widely expected. As it happens, Paul Keating won that election. Bear that in mind as we take you back to 1992.
I was just interested, Dr. William Gray, who's at the ANU, has done a couple of surveys to try and determine how many people in Australia do take astrology seriously. Now, I was intrigued to discover the surveys were 4 years apart, and between surveys, you found that the number of people who said, yes, I do believe in astrology, had nearly doubled.
Yes, in 1986-87, we found about 16% were inclined to accept astrology, and it seems to have jumped fairly significantly to about 29%.
Now, why in the last 4 years would so many more people suddenly decide that they believe in astrology? Does it have anything to do with the economic times we're going through?
That's a possible cause for it. I'm really uncertain as to what motivates people to believe in astrology. We have certainly the evidence that women are much more inclined to accept astrology than men. Also...
Why would that be so? Sensitivity, somebody said.
Well, there are various conjectures have been offered for that. One is that perhaps astrology and a lot of the psychic and mystical belief systems provide an alternative to science-based worldviews, which perhaps have a very unattractive macho male gender stereotype. That's one possibility, but it's pretty arm-waving speculative stuff. Another possibility is that women in general find their lives, for various reasons, subject to forces outside their control, and it may be that people who don't have a high degree of autonomy in their lives are also inclined to suspect that there are outside forces controlling their destiny.
But would you say, Doctor, that women are perhaps a little bit more intuitive than men and can understand the qualities of astrology and psychic phenomena?
I know no proof to establish that at all, I'm afraid. So,
See, the other thing that came out of these surveys that I found really interesting was that the belief in astrology was in inverse proportion to the level of education. So, in other words, the more educated you were, the less likely you were to take it seriously.
I'd have to dispute that.
Let's say all disputes.
I'll just expand on that momentarily, if I may. There were three very firm correlations that came out of the survey, and they are pretty strong. There is an age-related correlation, there is an education-related correlation, and there's a gender-related correlation. Now, there does seem to be some truth in the old adage, older and wiser, that the older people get, the more sceptical they become, the less inclined they are to accept that the planets do affect their destinies in any way. Education is the most dramatic and the strongest influence. The more education people have consumed, the less likely they are to accept that the planets affect their destiny in any way.
I'd have to dispute that. 100%. The reason, 99%. Shall I say this? Most of my personal clientele are politicians, professional people. It's no time. It sounds very hilarious in today's times, but I have doctors of philosophy that come to see me. I have medical practitioners that come to see me. I have barristers and solicitors. I have businessmen, very well-known businessmen in this country, and I also have housewives and students, so I have a wide variety of people that visit me personally. Now, for you to make that statement, I would have to say you're wrong.
No, look, hang on. I'm not saying that these people, your clients, have not got a high level of education. All I would be asserting is that they are in a very small minority of those educated people who accept the truth in astrology.
Yes, the lady behind... Yes, you're wanting to say something?
Again, are we speaking of pop astrology, that the survey was made on, or on astrology, serious astrology?
Oh, the survey was couched in very general terms. People were simply asked to respond to the question, do you believe in astrology? It was as simple as that.
When the President of America has become someone who has gone to an astrologer, that people in high positions don't use astrology. I mean, that is a man with incredible worldly power. All right, lots of people may not put down on their survey that they go to astrologers or read astrology because it has a social stigma. It's not something that a lot of people want to run around and say, I'm a great success because I go to an astrologer. So therefore, people are very closeted. It's a very personal, very intimate subject, and I don't think surveys are the way to judge who does it, who reads it. The way to judge who reads them is to see people who do know their star sign and can say things like Peter said when he began the show. They write it off like they know it all so well.
Well, I think the surveys are interesting in that they give us a broad indication as to how the population reacts to certain subjects. You see, the other thing the survey told us was that about a quarter of the population reads the columns, and about a half of them take it seriously.
Doctor, can I just rephrase here too about specialised astrology? Now, I specialise in political astrology. That's my forte. I'm very good at it. I've predicted every state and federal election since 1974, including this last Tasmanian election.
Well, so have I, Hilton. I mean, that's...
Well, hold on. I've gone further than that. I've gone seats. Now, in this last prediction for the Tasmanian election, and I can remember saying this to the media, but also to a local member of Parliament at a function that I was at on the Friday night prior to the Saturday's election. I said there will be a minimum of 19 seats and a maximum of 21 to the Liberal Party. Now, I go down to seats. I just don't say the Liberals are going to win, the Labor Party's going to win.
But now, Milton, do you do your predictions after you've read the polls?
No,
or do you...
no, I do them
Can you give us the tip for the next federal election?
Yes, Keating's gone, you know, so but I'll give you more detail on that later.
I think about 7 million people in Australia are saying that.
But I will give you the seats on that.
But can you, give us the seats.
No, not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
I haven't, it's still till, we've got till March next year. Now, September of this year is where we're going to see things, to be precise, the 12th of August, you'll start seeing Keating warming up, wanting perhaps to run an early election. But I'm leaving that to my media outlets because that's where I make my predictions. That's what I get paid for. And, of course, I will certainly let you know my predictions in future.
OK. Look, let's get down to tin tacks here, because there's one very basic question that I'd really like to hear you discuss, and that is, why should the position of the planets have any influence on how we turn out to be, on our personalities, on our characters, even the choice of occupation that we might make, what might happen in our lives? Why should that be? Can anyone explain that for me in 10... Can anyone explain that for me in 10 seconds? It's up the back.
The answer to that's very simple, Peter. The forces that govern the universe are quite well known, and they have been for about half a century, and the forces do not account for any of those interactions. The planets do not affect our personalities and the events that happen to us in that way.
That's an opinion.
Ray, can you explain for us simply how the position of the planets at the time of our birth might in any way affect what sort of people we are?
Well, Peter, I think that, first of all, the purpose of astrology is not to foretell the future. No
That's precisely what you claim to do.
No, it is not what we claim to do. It's what you people keep claiming we do. We don't.
Just listen to an astrologer for 30 seconds.
Yeah, OK. Just explain for us why the position of the planet should in any way influence our personalities.
The position of the planets, when we're talking about the solar system, the most important thing in the solar system is the sun. You switch off that sun, you've got a heap of rocks. Having said that, there are 4 major seasons: summer, autumn, winter, spring. A plant that will grow in the spring will not grow in the summer. I won't bore you. It goes on. There are... Well, we're all intelligent.
No, I think it is accepted by certainly people who grow things that plants are influenced by the sun and the moon and the stars.
Take it a little further. We are part of all we have met. Arthur Bowman will tell you that every time in the universe is putting its stamp impeccably and forever on every part of that universe that started at that moment, including people. A winter child is like a winter flower. A summer child is like a summer flower. We are different. I take a step. I'm different to the person who is one step behind me and different again to the person on either side of me. The thing that makes astrology work best is free will. Free will. Because you can have 50,000 people born at the same instant, under the same planetary influences, and they, exercising their God-given free will make 50,000 individual different decisions, and each one of them can be right for you.
Yes, but hold on a minute. Does that mean that all those people who were born at the same minute that I was are also all those things that I am? You know, on the bad days, malicious, pessimistic and selfish and...
Yes, but they've got the free will.
Astrological twin, like a person born in the same hospital around about the same time as you would have a similar experience or life pattern.
But does that mean, by that definition that Ray's just given us, we should be almost identical personalities?
No, necessarily, because we're taking into account the genetic processes that arrive from the two family lines that at conception then meet, and that individual is obviously going to display a lot of those genetic processes. And it is the environmental influences acting on those genetic processes which is going to make that person what they are.
I'd like most of what they're saying is cop-outs from what they're claiming. I mean, they're giving you all the... Hey, hang on a bit. Can't the skeptics have a say? Aren't we allowed?
No.
Everything they started out... They started out...
Free will! Free will!
Yes. Well, isn't that denying the whole basis of your load of rubbish you talk about?
Okay, wait a minute. Go ahead, Barry.
It's denying all these influences.
No,
Make your point.
The Paul says I will use it this way. Look, I can use this chair like that, or I can sit on it. Look, I can fall over.
Take it easy, Ray.
You can do whatever you like. Look, free will.
Well, I'm all in favour of it.
So what was your point, Barry? What were you going to say?
Look, the point is, they make a statement about this influence they have, and then for the rest of the 5 minutes, they've been giving you the outs from it, so that when it doesn't work for you, well, it might be a genetic influence, or it might be a free will, or it might be anything else. I mean,
it is free will.
Well, I'm agreeing with you about free will. Why do you have to then overlay your free will with this absolute tripe?
It's not.
I mean, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm going to break this up. I'm going to break this up here. Hold on.
Hi, this is Michael Cruz from the Committee for the Advancement of Scientific Skepticism at the Centre for Inquiry Canada. CAS is committed to critically examining scientific, technological and medical claims in the public forum across Canada. Working with our expert advisors, local CFI branches, and other skeptical groups, CAS confronts the peddlers of pseudoscience with evidence-based scientific inquiry. 2010 has been a watershed year for the skeptical movement in Canada, and in 2011, CAS will continue fighting bad science in the media and the government. If you would like to become involved in the fight to promote critical thinking in Canada, or if you have a concern about the spread of pseudoscience in the Canadian media, please contact us at cas@cficanada.ca. You can also follow us on Twitter at CFICAS and on Facebook at CAS at Centre for Inquiry Canada. CAS, fighting pseudoscience without apology.
Welcome to Supanova 2011. It's all happening. All the fans are here, all the geeks are here, all the big stars are here, and, well, I'm here too. Supernova 2011. Look who we got here. It's a skeptic, but he's not a skeptic. He's actually dressed as some guy with superpowers that an idiot wearing a tie and a leather jacket hasn't got. It's Brett. How are you, Brett? From the Hunter. We don't like religion so much. I mean, we should think about the contradictions in the Bible Society.
Yes. How you going,
You should get a shorter name for that society.
A shorter name, yes. Well, Atheist Agnostics Anti-Theist Society is a bit of a mouthful, so we do just shorten it to A3.
Like, hey, go easy on the God. Isn't that your theme?
Well, yeah, like the club itself likes to be... we just like to discuss ideas, and we encourage the members to be as nasty or as nice to religion as they like, but we do encourage people to have a think about it.
Yeah. So I always get sidetracked by this issue because theology just fascinates me, both people that are into it and aren't into it. So I won't get sidetracked. Let's just have a look around because very much, as you would say, we are, like the Bible, completely existing in a fictional world here, aren't we? Everything here is based on wonderful fiction.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd look around and I'd say at least half or more than half of the people aren't dressed as normal humans.
Yeah, and this is what I would normally be wearing this time of day anyway there. And the thing is, we haven't tried to figure out what kind of character I might be.
Yeah, actually, that's... I mean, the jacket looks great. The red tie, it's brilliant. It could fit into an anime somewhere. We just need to find which one.
Yeah, I was thinking, like I said, John Travolta after he was shot in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
The body in the back that they had to take to Harvey Keitel's place. Something like that. Just a few ideas that come off the top of my head. But let's tell us, I'm going to step back. Tell us about your character.
All right. Well, my name is Ganondorf. I am the King of Evil from The Legend of Zelda. I come from the desert. I lead a band of thieves. I broke into the king's castle and stole the Triforce, which is a power left by the gods to give people whatever wish they want.
Wow. So George Hamilton's not in that?
Not that I know of.
When you say The Legend of Zelda, I thought George Hamilton would have had to be in that with his tan.
I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with George Hamilton.
Oh, you see, I'm just bringing...
I can't follow you on this one,
I see, the guy from the steampunk 18th century walks into these things, and I know not of young people and their tales.
Yeah.
But we can all agree on one thing: the Tom Baker exhibition down there, it's hot.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
And the other thing we can all agree on, and I really enjoyed getting this across to here, and people that don't come to these kind of things, it's great to be in the community here. You know, it's great to have like people in your shop that are really enjoying the stuff.
Definitely. Like, I can't walk 5 meters without people coming up to me saying, "Hey, Ganondorf, I love your character. I love your costume. You look brilliant." And we can just have a conversation about all the stuff we're into.
And what?
Yes.
How would you describe the kind of people that are here? Because we are talking about the community. What kind of people are sort of turning up here today? Because I know it's just like the regular people I meet around all the time. But people who don't come to this kind of stuff thinks that it's like guys with beards, glasses, and nerdy guys that have never been out on a date with girls. But it couldn't be anything further than that.
Yeah, well, not wanting to indict myself too much, I would say most people are nerds, but that extends beyond what most people think. Like, when you think of a nerd, you think glasses guy. He's never been outside, but like heaps of girls these days is playing video games. They watch anime. They get into sci-fi.
but yeah, it's not what you expect, and it's like a day out with the community. And sure, we all exist online around with each other.
Yeah, totally.
But you know, we don't often get to meet in that kind of stuff. And it's, again, as I say over and over again, it's no stupider than following a sporting team.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've got friends from Brisbane and Perth who are here, and like we're dressed as characters from the same game, so we can meet up, and everyone thinks that we're from the same place. So, yeah.
Now, is there some irony in the fact that you're a very strong anti-theist and you're dressed as a god? Can I go splitter?
The irony is not lost on me. I would prefer to use the term double agent.
Well, there's a part that always happens at any of these great adventures that Richard and I go on when we're mucking around, carrying on, doing something for the Skeptic Zone, where we get to have our noms. Now, normally Dr. Rachel's here for this kind of stuff, but I think she's attending to a nom-emergency somewhere else, isn't she?
Yes, she must be. Noms without Dr. Rachy, it's a bit odd, but we are nomming for her.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you can eat as much as 3 people if you really want to, Richard.
If I really wanted to.
Yeah, but I've got to say, Richard has lost a lot of weight lately because to be on the one, he had to have a BMI of 7 before they let him on TV, and it's great. He's now got the figure of a 12-year-old girl, and she really misses it.
And she wants it back. Yeah, the treadmill is my friend now, I can tell you.
Yeah, look, secretly it has been for many years, people. But look, we're here with some people that have got more than a treadmill for their friend, because thousands of people around us are here doing the cosplay, doing the sci-fi thing, and when you come to these things, you go, oh, it's a lot of work to cover this, but after you've come here a little while, it's not just the stars or the famous people you talk to, it's the people that are just into all the sci-fi stuff. It's great because you don't meet them normally.
You don't, and I was just thinking before... now, we go along to Mind Body Wallet twice a year, and it's full of people. This is also full of people, and you might say, well, this is more outrageous or more fantasy. Well, it's not, because everyone here is coming here to indulge their hobby, their passion, but they all know it's good fun and an escape. No one here actually really thinks that the vampires are real and all the rest of it. Whereas your Mind Body Wallet, there are people there going along thinking the crystals are healing them and so forth.
Also, we spoke to Brett from the Atheist Society of Newcastle, and I made the comment that he was dressed up as a god, one of the gods, and I thought that was a bit ironic. And but he made the point that, well, it's a bit, just like the Bible here. There's a wonderful fictional world that everyone's living in, but no one's. You don't find the Trekkies going to war with the Doctor Who fans. Besides the fact they'd win, obviously. That they. It's just everybody respects everybody's other belief, even though it's not a religion. There's religion-like aspects to it.
I guess you could argue something along those lines, but
I obviously can't because I'm not very bright.
But basically, at the end of the day, as long as you don't call someone who's not Spike, you'll be okay.
Which just happened earlier. There was a guy dressed up in a really great costume who I thought he was Spike from the Buffy universe. I said, "Hi, Spike," and just because he had...
He wasn't so happy, but he understood.
Yeah, so if you are going to say good costume to someone, make sure that they are who you think they are.
So here's the story, folks. If you have a choice in your city to go to a New Age festival or a fantasy sci-fi, it's fantasy sci-fi all the way. A lot more fun, a lot more good-natured, and a lot more costumes.
And where else could you wear a Spaceballs badge, like I have an original one from the movie, bought it in the foyer on the way out, and have like 5 or 6 people comment on it? Normally you'd wear it and people would think like it might be a description of a body part or something like that.
You bought that when Spaceballs came out, the movie, really?
Yeah, because and the way they did all the Spaceballs merchandise is anyone who's seen the movie, the Mel Brooks movie, basically, they're making jokes about merchandise all the way through. And when you went into the movie, the merchandise area was hidden, so you didn't realise it was there, so the joke wasn't... And then when you came out, you see a great big Spaceballs merchandise thing. So they didn't blow the gag early on. It was quite well done, and all I could afford was a badge.
Well, you did well, and I'm glad to see you still have it, because I have seen no other Spaceballs memorabilia here at all.
And... I think I like baiting Richard with questions like this. So you're saying that there's more scientific thinking and reason at a sci-fi convention than there is at a New Age convention?
What I'm saying is that there's more scientific thinking and reason at... Yes, absolutely, of course, absolutely. I mean, again, a lot of these people are probably geeky nerds. A lot of them are housewives and husbands and sons and daughters and all the rest of it. But they're all just enjoying their escapism, their fantasy.
And look, one final point I'd like to make here, because there are many feminists who listen to the show that are sometimes a little bit annoyed with the fact that a lot of the, not just the skeptical guys, but the fan base, they get quite excited when women get involved in the whole thing, because they go, hey, there's women involved, and as the whole eye candy issue, which is the problem. And that's come up once or twice when I've been talking to people here, guys talk. They're really great that the women are coming along here in the wild costumes. And I've had to correct them and say, well, it's great that the women are coming along because you want everybody to be part of this community. And I could see why feminists would get to be annoyed by that. Do you think the feminists are just being pedantic, Richard, or do you think that is a problem?
Well, that's a really good question, because just before, on our way here to get these glorious soggy chips we're eating, I noticed a couple of guys dressed up from the movie 600. It was a 300. The Spartan Warriors.
Oh, the hot Spartans.
Yeah. Now, there are some buff guys wearing hardly anything at all, and then you walk a few paces on and you see some women dressed up like vampires wearing shorts that are shorter than the shorts you've ever seen in your life. So I think it goes both ways. I really do. Yes, there's some eye candy around here, but there's male and female eye candy.
Okay, and look, we're just on the way out, and I bumped into a couple of actual Skeptic Zone listeners. And as far as we know, they are, both of them are here. Now, is there something we can do with the show to make it any better?
Don't say kick me on.
Okay, hang on. I'll angle that a different way. That's a very ABC question to ask people, a tough question. What's your favourite bit of it?
Oh, man. This is the point where I admit to just re-listening to 300 episodes of Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, and now I'm desperately trying to scroll back. I'm like, no, wrong Skeptic show.
We don't do fact or fiction. No, we don't do the fact or fiction.
That's true.
Well, is there something you'd like to see us get involved in the show or something? Or actually,
is something.
Have we actually taught you anything at all? Is there anything you've learned from it?
Is something. All around, I live in Lane Cove, and there's ear candling signs up everywhere, and I can't get groceries without walking past ear candling signs. Is there anything we can do about this?
Funny you should ask. Skeptic Man or Skeptic Lady, Dr. Raichi, is about to do a report for Today Tonight on ear candles.
Oh.
Excellent. That's really grand.
So, like most skeptics have their own woo. That's yours. That's the one that annoys you the most. Is what about setting fire to your bum? That's just as relevant.
The one that annoys me the most is applied kinesiology, but I have a bit of a personal history with that one because.
Okay. Wasn't it your orthodontist?
No, my orthodontist does iridology and applied kinesiology, but my mother does applied kinesiology as well.
Must be great at Christmas dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my daughter, the skeptic. She thinks I'm a wacko.
She thinks I'm a quack. No, she actually hasn't said it outright. It's like, oh, you think vaccines work? I'm like, oh, dear.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
You have to get the vaccines in secret.
Wow. Yeah, pretty much.
Now, I'm a bit of a believer in the crackpot. When someone says something like, oh, you think vaccines work, it's like... It's like, oh, yes,
we do. Thank you.
And you know what? That gravity thing is really catching on as well.
Yeah, gravity is a real thing. No, she believes in gravity. So it's just vaccines. Like, it's just the germ theory of medicine she doesn't believe in. Gravity's fine.
Now, the point that I was making, we mentioned with Richard earlier, is that there possibly is more scientific thinking and reason going on here at a sci-fi convention than you would find at a New Age convention, perhaps.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. I've been to one of the New Age, like the Mind Body Wallet thing that was at Botany Bay before, and it's just crystals and incense and make yourself feel better. When
there are just there. They are selling, swords in different shapes for a few $100s a piece that look like they'll fall apart the first time you unsheath them too hard, and people are still buying them. So I don't know.
But no one intends you to use them in a battle.
No. I'll pay. That's reasonable.
I think in a fake cosplay battle, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're not planning to.
There's a few sci-fi things about, but not as many as I kind of expected. There's no Discovery Channel or any of that kind of business.
There's sci-fi channels over there, but look, I'll give you the farewell greeting from here. It fits in it. It's live long and eat some jelly babies. That gets Doctor Who and Star Trek in together.
Okay, very nice.
See you later, guys.
Take care.
They are the listeners. See you.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Right, that's it. Let me see. There's my suitcase back here. Yeah, passport, check. Trousers, shirt, toothbrush, mustics. What's this? Frodo frogs. Skeptics badges. Oh, it's all falling out. I'm ready. I'm going to zip up that bag in a minute after I clean up the mess and head straight out for the airport, catch that plane to TAM, Las Vegas. Hope to see you there, and we'll be getting lots of great reports, lots of interviews for upcoming episodes of the Skeptic Zone. But until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off as he runs out the door from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.